Oh, that's right. See what I mean? See, so, yeah, so I'd like to have been in criminology. Yes. Yes, sir, for that.
You know, when you finally decided to leave the series,
yeah.
What sort of direction did you want it to take in those last years?
What did I want to do?
Well, no, what sort of direction did you want, or what sort of mark did you want to leave on the series as you got there?
Do you know, sir, I never ever thought of it. I was explaining that yesterday. I'm a working, what they call a jobbing actor. I work at something that I'm given, and I try to make it as good as I possibly can with material I've been given. And if it's popular, you soon learn till it's popular like a play, and you give your performance and you get good write-ups, good criticisms, or you get bad ones, and you know pretty well whether you're a success or whether you're a failure. And I felt that my Doctor Who was going well, and people told me that they liked it, and I believed them, thank God. Otherwise I couldn't have done 5 years. But I don't think I left it with any feelings that I'd left a mark on the programme. That would have been immense conceit, I think. I would like to have just gone out of it with people saying, oh, I loved his hero, I'm sorry he's leaving. The BBC actually weren't sorry at all. I was telling you about that. Sean Sutton, who was head of programmes, who was a great mate of mine, he and I were both in the show together at the West End before the war. He was the youngest stage manager, and I was the youngest leading man, and we've been mates ever since. And he gave me the job as Doctor Who, and at the end I thought, I think it's time I had a raise. And so I went to see Sean, and I said, Sean, I've done whatever it is, 4 seasons, coming into my 5th year, and how about a bit more tut? You know, a little bit more spondulix, a little bit more mud. And he said, well, like, what had you in mind? And I said, well, like, for what, pounds? And which was very little, a lot of pounds, I told you. And he said, we're very sorry to see you go. That is absolutely true. I said, I'll leave if I don't get that rise. And he said, we're very sorry to see you go. And I said, sure, aren't you going to have a meeting about it? Aren't you going to call up all the other heads of departments and say, look here, can we afford to let John go like this? I mean, the figures are tremendously good, and the figures have gone up and up and up during my year, because I was in colour, remember, so that helped tremendously. And because with all the previous ones, it was in black and white. And I thought he'd at least ask them. No, he said, no, we're very sorry to see you go. And off I went, and that was the end of it. And I never had a party or a glass of terrible BBC wine. I just went, and they said, lovely. Right, next. And we got the next one, yeah. They got Jon Pertwee.
John, I understand you travel quite a bit. You were talking Thursday night, going to Seychelles and the islands off India. Perhaps can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, well, I'm a lunatic, you see. I still do these things which a man of my years should not do. I still ride a motorcycle every day of my life. I've just got any bikers here? Oh, good. Oh, good. A lady, the only biker. I ride a great big V-twin Honda, which I enjoy, and I still ski a lot, snow ski out of home in the Pyrenees, and snow ski like I'm sure you will do. You get snow all the time, you have to go travel hundreds of miles to get to it. And I dive, and diving is my great hobby, South Africa. I was taught by one of Cousteau's divers years and years ago. I was in my boat when I talked about the south of France. I was watching these divers dive on the first wreck they found at a place called Agay Lighthouse, Saint-Maxime, near Saint-Tropez. And they were pulling up these wonderful artifacts. I was in my boat watching, and somebody came over one day and said, the commander wants to see you, and we were all before Commander Cousteau. And he said, what are you doing here? And I thought, well, we were in trouble because we were trespassing or something. You can't trespass on the sea, and it's ridiculous. And he said, well, I said, I'm just watching, I'm fascinated by what you're doing. And it's, seeing things break the surface for the first time in thousands of years, it's marvelous. And he said, well, that's no good to anybody. He said, did you want to learn how to dive? I said, you're joking. Of course I do. He said, okay. And he detailed off one of his divers, and I was taught to dive. And I then pack horse for him, which is going up and down like a pack horse, fixing. Anybody any divers here? There is one. I know. Oh, you are, good. Where you take a canvas bag and dive under the surface, and you take air out of your return valve and out of your mouthpiece and put it into the canvas bag, fill it up with air, and that will have tremendous lift. And they were lifting amphora and lifting artifacts up out of the water. You have to watch out what you're doing because you have to let a bit of air out as it gets nearer the surface, otherwise the thing shoots out to the water and comes hits you on air. So anyway, I dived a lot, and later I was diving in the island of Ibiza, the Balearic Islands, and that's where you probably all have heard about this ring. It's been written about quite a bit. This ring I'm wearing is 500 years BC. It's the goddess Athene of Athens, and the setting that it's in, the shank, is 55 AD. And I found it in a little pot in a Roman wreck that sank in 55 AD. And I found this ring, and it was exactly as it is now, except that somebody ruined it by re-silvering the inside because the shank was coming off the coin, and he covered the whole of the inside with silver, which was absolutely disastrous. But I found it and I put it on my finger, and we then later dated the wreck that we were working on, and that wreck was 55 AD, which means that the man who found that coin had found that coin in 55 AD and said, wow, that's 500 years before Christ, that's an antique. I'm going to make that into a ring. And he made it into a ring, and nearly 2,000 years later I found it. This is a marvelous story.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Apparently, they were supposed to have a woman play the part of your arch enemy, the Master.
Oh, a lot of rubbish. Absolute rubbish. It was one of those rumors. John Nathan Turner, I think, is behind a lot of these things. I'm quite convinced that JNT starts these rumors himself and then denies them categorically. They're all rubbish. And they had this whole thing about the female Doctor Who and all this. They're based on no fact at all. I was with Tom the other day at a conference, and people were coming up with all these incredible reasons, why the head of the BBC said that Doctor Who's coming off and that it's coming back in 18 months and so on. And you heard all these rumours about what he's going to do with it, how he's going to take it off, and then he's going to kill the Doctor off and take the whole thing off and so on. I'm here to tell you, as I said yesterday, that Tom said, I don't know anything. He said, here I am. I'm not talking about Tom, I'm talking about Colin. I'm sorry, I'm not Colin Baker. And he said, nobody's told me a thing. He said, here am I, I'm the Doctor, and nobody has told me. I haven't had a letter. My agent hasn't been told officially. None of us have been told anything except that the program is at the moment, there's a stop on it. And that's all he knows. So I can promise you, any rumor that you hear, ignore it, because it would be all a lot of rubbish.
Would you like to have a female bad guy to contend with on a regular basis?
No, because I wouldn't like to be seen kicking a woman in the teeth. Though I was a new cynic, hero is fine against the fellas, but it wouldn't look too good against the woman.
Speaking about the Master, what do you think made the Master such an effective villain, besides the actor's performance? As a character, what do you think made the Master an effective villain?
Well, I mean, Roger Delgado, who is the gentlest man in the world, I talked about him yesterday. He was a gentle, dear, kind, sweet, cowardly soul. I've told this before, that he was terrified of his own shadow, and therefore doing the things that he had to do was awful. I mean, with the horror he went through doing them. But he was the arch villain. I mean, he looked the arch villain. He had these eyes and this beard and these piercing eyes and this wonderful commanding voice and great stature. He had tremendous presence. I mean, there's never been anybody like him. I mean, that's why he played every film you ever saw. They wanted to villainous Arab who played it. Roger Delgado.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
I just wondered how the producers took the original plan for Havoc, I believe it was. Wasn't there a stunt team involved?
The Havoc?
The Havoc?
Yes, the stunt team.
You were responsible for that, were you not?
Yes, I was, yeah.
How did the producers of the show first take that when you approached the idea of stunts and a lot more action in the series? How was
Oh, they loved the idea, because Barry Letts was very amenable to my doing, putting a lot more action into the program, because Pat had played it as a rather sort of introverted clown. And I wanted to do something completely different, so I wanted to incorporate the use of machinery and flying and helicopters and boats and all the things that we did. And I said, so we're going to have action, we want to have action then. and not a lot of lily-livered, fluffy film extras. On one of the first days, one of the first programs I ever did that was, what was the one down the Cape with the Silurians? A lot of soldiers turned up for that. They were all supposed to be crack troops. And they had hair right down the ear. Yeah. And with berets on, and they had the berets on absolutely flat, like this. And I said, what, are you clowns or something? What's the matter with you guys? You're supposed to be commandos. Your hair should be shaved, but not long like this. Oh, God, it's only a couple of days' work and all that. And I said, get off the set. And I had a terrible row with the director and said, who cast these fellows? He said, I asked for people with short hair, this is what they said to me. So I said, well, get them off the set, let's shoot something else. We got them off the set. And I called for my stunt double, Terry Walsh. And I said, Terry, what are we going to do about this? He said, well, we're going to get your mates in. And so this is how they got them in, because Billy and Roy and all the Stuart Fell, all these great stuntmen, they were all a group that Terry Walsh used to work with. And so we got them all in together, and I forgot the name of the little guy who ran them at that time, but he wasn't a very good stuntman, because he always broke his leg or his ankle, whatever he did stunt. We used him a lot more than anybody else, because it was very much better to have a stuntman who really falls over and breaks his leg. I mean, he looks much better. You have Roy Scammell, I mean, in that one, the great one we were talking about, with the gasometers, and you remember when one of the soldiers is shot off the top of the gasometer, he goes, and he died. Well, that's Roy Scammell, he's an ex-Olympic diver. And of course, he always looks like it, because Roy is very handsome, and he's always in the sun, and he's always oiling himself. And, and when he does a fall, he's shot, he goes, back, he goes, like this, and he does the perfect, swallow that. Just as he's about to hit the box, he goes, he does a roll tuck. And of course, it looks terrible. So in that particular show, he did the most wonderful fall off the top of that gasometer when he was shot. I mean, we could only use about 10 feet of it, because Roy looked far too pretty. You remember when I was having the chase sequence in Betty in the same show, and there was a soldier who was shot, who flew out of bed. He jumped into Bessie and was shot, and he fell out. Well, that was Roy. And Roy again, he went, duh! And he went into what we call a starfish, like that, the legs out. And then he did this tuck. We said, no, it's hopeless, it's terrible. It's far too good. He said, it's perfect. We said, I know, what's wrong with it? So he said, right, get this other guy, the one who led this bunch, and we said, well, get in. And he went in, and he got his foot caught in the running board, and fell, and he landed on the back of his head, and the director said, terrific!
We tried everything last time, and I want to know about, you used the sword a few times, and then the sword, well, with the skills and everything else. Is that just choreographed set, or did you learn going?
No, I used to be a fencer.
Yeah?
I wasn't foil, I was saber, actually.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, in my fight with the master, anybody who knows anything about it will see that my back position was not very good. And the reason is because I had terrible trouble with my spine. I had an operation, extraordinary operation, which made it very much better. And all that period of time, I was in agony with my back. And so, in fact, I had to do that fight. But I mean, I should be, as I can be now. I can be absolutely straight back. But at that time, I was split like this.
Well, you used the sword here, I was really impressed by it.
Oh, good. Well, you'd have been a lot more impressed at the back of these.
Yeah. I just wanted to know whether it was just set movement.
Well, yes, of course. No, of course, you have to. Because Roger, in fact, hadn't fought before with foils, and so Terry and I, Terry's a great swordsman, he and I worked out the fight from the things that I know. Of course, you have to work it out, otherwise, I'm likely to take Roger's ear off. He can cut my throat.
Knowledge and all the video, just moving.
You have to, every fight you ever see in any film is choreographed. Even a punch-up, punching fights, all choreographed, all the stuntmen, they know where the camera is, they know where to take it, where what they call sliding. You'll never find it, very rarely you ever see a man hit, which is the most potent way of hitting that way. They never do, they always hit hooks. And the reason they get hooks is because they know exactly when to mask. And then as they go there, the fella goes down and moves with it. And this is how good stuff, man. Never get seen.
I understand you actually hit a stuntman in Bessie when you were filming on Inferno.
Oh, God, man.
That's right.
Oh, now that's the most, now this is to give you an idea of what these stuntmen are like.